Morning, Year 5! Welcome back to this time we're going to do chapter number 5 of Philip Pullman, the Firework Maker's Daughter. Before we get started, let's just go through the answers to the comprehension questions from chapter 4. The first question was, what made the sound like a mighty trumpet? It was, of course, Hamlet the elephant. Question number 2, I wanted you to tell me 2 things that changed when Lila reached the edge of the jungle, or the end of the jungle. There were a few different things that you could have said. Firstly, that the path vanished, it thinned out and then vanished. The trees thinned out, and then the jungle sounds all stopped, all the animal noises stopped, and the only sound that she could hear was her footsteps and the rumble of the mountain. So though that was the answer to question 2, you could have had 2 of any of those. Question number 3 I asked was, how does the author show that Lila was determined and resilient in this chapter? It was to do with her going on her journey regardless of all the horrible things that were happening to her. So you could have talked about how she dragged herself on bleeding knees, that every muscle hurt. She had no breath in her lungs. She thought she was going to die, and yet she still went on. So that demonstrates how determined and resilient that she was to succeed on her journey. And the final question was the vocabulary question. I asked you to tell me what a gourd was. I'm going to accept 2 possible answers here. I will accept if you thought it was a flask, or I'll let you have if it was a bottle. The answer I was thinking was flask, but I will accept bottle as well. As I was researching the answer, I actually discovered something myself, that a gourd is named after the fruit of the same name, a fruit called a gourd, and it was actually the gourd flask was made from the dried skin of the fruit traditionally. So I found out something that I didn't know about a gourd. So anyway, those are the answers to our comprehension questions. As always, the end of this chapter, we will have some more comprehension questions for you. So let's get on with chapter 5. She pulled herself up with shaking arms and stepped inside. The floor was baking hot, and the air was hardly breathable. She walked on, deeper into the earth, deeper than the moonlight went, and heard nothing but silence, and saw nothing but dark rock. Harsh, barren walls rose to left and right. She felt them with her bleeding hands. Then the tunnel opened out into a great cavern. She'd never seen anything so gloomy and empty of life, and her heart sank, because she had come all this way, and there was nothing here. She sank to the floor. And as if that were a signal, a little flame licked out of the rocky wall for an instant and went out. Then another in a different place. Then another. Then the earth shook and groaned, and with a harsh grating sound, the rocky wall tore itself open, and suddenly the cavern was full of light. Lila sat up, astonished, as red fire and flame licked and crackled at the rocky roof. All of a sudden, the grotto was alive with movement, as 1,000 fire imps swarmed upwards to dash themselves against the rock and smash into 1,000 more. As a wide carpet of boiling lava spread from side to side, as the clang and clash of mighty hammers and anvils rang with the rhythm of a great fire dance. The cavern was full of light and noise. Thousands upon thousands of little fire spirits toiled and blazed and swung hammers, and ran to and fro with handfuls of sparks, and swarmed against the rocky wall till it melted and slid downwards like soft wax. Then the greedy creatures plunged their hands into it and lifted up the bubbling sulphur to their tiny mouths, and ate until another mass of rock slid down and smothered them. And then into the heart of the light and the fire and the noise leapt Razvani himself, the great Fire-Fiend, whose body was a mass of flame and whose face a mask of scorching light. Thousands of fire imps scattered as he landed, and even the blazing flames bowed down to him, and so did Lila. In a voice like the roar of a forest fire, Razvani spoke. "By what right have you come to my grotto?" She swallowed hard. It was difficult to breathe because she seemed to be taking fire into her lungs as well as air. I want to be a firework maker, she managed to say. He laughed a great laugh. You never! What do you want from me? Royal sulphur, she gasped. At that he slapped his sides and laughed even harder, and a chorus of jeers and shrieks of merriment burst from all the fire infants. Royal sulphur! Did you hear that? Oh, that's good! That's funny! Well, speak, girl. Have you the 3 gifts? Lila could only shrug and shake her head. She could hardly speak. I don't know what they are, she said. So, what were you going to exchange for the royal sulphur? He roared. I don't know. You were going to give nothing in exchange. She had nothing to say. She bowed her head. Well, you've come this far, said the Fire-Fiend, and there's no going back. Now you're here, you must walk in the flames, like every other firework maker. I expect you've brought some magic water from my cousin, the goddess of the lake. You brought nothing for me, but I don't suppose you've forgotten to take care of yourself. Better drink it quickly. I've got nothing, Lila gasped. I didn't know about magic water or the 3 gifts. I just wanted to be a firework maker. And I'll be a good one, Razvani. I invented self-igniting crackle dragons and shimmering coins. I've learned everything my father could teach me. It's all I want, to be a firework maker like him. But Razvani merely laughed. Ha ha! Show her the ghosts, he cried, and clapped his blazing hands. Instantly, a crack shivered its way down the rock wall, and out of the opening came a procession of ghosts, each attended by fire demons. The ghosts were so pale and transparent that Lila could hardly see them, but she heard them wailing. Beware! Look at me! I came without the 3 gifts. Alas, take warning from me. I hadn't worked at the craft and I wasn't ready. Maiden, turn back. I was arrogant and headstrong. I didn't seek the water from the goddess, and I perished in the flames. Wailing and weeping, the ghosts passed across the lake of fire and vanished into a crack in the opposite wall. That's what happens to those who don't come prepared, said Razvani. But now you must submit yourself as they did. Walk into my flames, Lila. You have come for the royal sulphur. Receive it from my hands. And he laughed louder and spun in a rapid dance, stamping his feet in a wide circle and causing a ring of fire to blaze up around him. Through the lashing red and yellow and orange, his face seemed to waver and flicker, but his voice rang out clearly over the roar and crackle. You want to be a firework maker? Walk into my flames. Your father did in his time, and so did every artist in fire. This is what you've come for. Why are you waiting? She was terribly afraid, but she knew that she must do it. She would rather be a ghost than go back empty-handed and fail at the one thing she had ever wanted. So she took one step forward, and then another, and her poor feet burned and blistered so that she cried out loud. Then she took another step, and when she knew she could bear it no longer, she heard a great sound behind her, like a mighty trumpet, and through the blaze a voice was shouting, "Lila, the water! Take it! Take it!" And there was a small figure beside her, thrusting something into her hands. A gourd. A drinking gourd with a clasp that she tore off before lifting it to her parched lips and drinking deep. All at once, a marvellous coolness spread through her body and down to the tips of her toes. The pain vanished, and the dryness in her throat and lungs was soothed and moistened. At the entrance to the cave behind her, she could see Chulak shrinking back and covering his face from the heat, and she could see Hamlet fanning him with his ears. But she was in the heart of the fire, facing Razvani once again, and the flames were harmless now. They played like fountains of light. They rushed up her legs and arms and across her face like darting birds, and she felt light and joyful as if she were a flame herself, dancing with pure energy and joy. "So you have done it," Razvani said to her. "Welcome to the flames, Lila." And the royal sulphur?" she said. "Ha! When you reach the heart of the fire, all your illusions vanish. Didn't your father tell you that?" "Illusions? I don't understand." "The royal sulphur doesn't exist, Lila. There is no such thing." "Then how can I be a firework maker? I thought every firework maker needed some royal sulphur to become a true artist." "Illusions, Lila. Fire burns away all our illusions. The world itself is an all illusion. Everything that exists flickers like a flame for a moment and then vanishes. The only thing that lasts is change itself. There is no royal sulphur, an illusion. Everything outside the fire is illusion." "But the three gifts, I don't understand. What are the three gifts, Razvani?" "Whatever they are, you must have brought them to me," he said. And that was the last thing she heard from him, for as he said that, he dwindled away, and the lake of fire darkened and became red rock, and then just rock, and all the myriad fire imps became little feeble sparks that floated aimlessly for a second, and sank, and went out at once. The grotto was bare again. Lila turned away from where the fire had been. She was dazed and disappointed, calm and curious, pleased and puzzled. In fact, she didn't know what she felt or who she was for a moment. But then she saw Chulak and ran to him. "Chulak, you saved my life, and you're hurt, you're burned, and let me help you." He was shaking his head and tugging at her hand. "Don't waste any time," he said. "We've got to go. Hurry, tell her as we go, Hamlet." They stumbled out of the grotto into the pale light of dawn, and Hamlet said, "I'm sorry, Lila. I heard the birds talking at the foot of the mountain, and they said, 'Look, the white elephant, that's the very one who escaped from the city.' And I asked the bird what he knew, and he said, 'The firework maker helped you escape. Someone saw and told the king, and now Lal Chand has been arrested, and he's going to be executed.' Then he flew away to tell the other birds. Lila, we've got to go back as fast as we can. Don't waste time blaming anyone. Get on my back and hold tight." So in a torment of fear that put Razvani and the royal sulphur and the three gifts completely out of her mind, Lila clambered up next to Chulak on the elephant's back and held on tight as Hamlet began to slither down the mountain in the light of dawn. And that is the end of chapter 5. So now, comprehension questions. Are you ready? Question number 1. When Lila stepped inside the grotto, what two things made her feel immediately uncomfortable? Question number 2. When Lila saw the great cavern, what phrase does the author use to show us that Lila felt disappointed? Question number 3, tricky one this. The author uses the phrase "like the roar of a forest fire" to describe Razvani's voice. I want you to tell me, what does this tell us about his voice? And I want you to give me 2 things it tells us about Razvani's voice. Number 4, as always, we have a vocabulary question. The vocabulary question this week is, what does the word parched mean? And your 4 choices: does it mean A, burned, B, wrinkled, C, dry, or D, smooth? So those are your vocabulary questions. I always have difficulty with that word. For chapter 5, send me your answers. As always, class53@hessenford.lancs.sch.uk. And I will see you again soon for chapter number 6. Take care. Bye.